welcome back to my healing journey. The last episode, I gave an overview on everything that I was going through in my current situation. In episode 2, I wanted to go over grief, loss, my family, dive a little more into my healing journey and where it started off. So I hope this helps anybody who's going through something similar. So, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about me and my family so you guys can understand throughout this journey where I've come from, how far I've come, the players that are involved in this, and just everything in between. So, my mom was 17 when she had me. So, after she had me, we moved back. We stayed with my grandma because she was a teenager. And so my grandpa took care of me. And we spent a lot of time together. My grandma took care of me. My mom took care of me after school and when she got done with work. So I had a lot of people around me. And then when my mom and my biological father graduated high school, they got married and had two more kids. And we moved around a lot because he was in the Navy. So after my sister was born, I'm not sure the time frame in which the divorce happened after my sister was born. But after she was born, they divorced, and for good reason. My mom had a very good reason. So we moved back with my grandpa, and I got to spend a lot of time with him. We went fishing. We watched shows. He went to school plays and school parties that I had, and he showed up for show and tell and things like that. So my grandpa was a very big part of my life up until my mom met my dad. And when I say dad, I refer to my stepdad, Ken. So throughout this journey, when I refer to dad, I'm referring to my stepdad, Ken, because he's been in my life since I was 6, and he was there for everything, every up, down, play, concert, things like that. He was there. So when I refer to dad, it's referring to him. So my mom met him when I was 6 through a friend of hers named Jessica. They were going to Corning together, and my mom's friend Jessica introduced my mom to him, and they hit it off. And ever since then, they've been together up until my dad passed away in 2021. So 4 years ago, he passed away. Um, and Fred was a really, really good friend of my dad's that is Jessica's husband. So we got to know him a lot, and he was really cool. He one time let me braid his hair, even straighten it. He's so funny. So once they kind of got closer and we got comfortable and stuff, we moved to where he was living. And things with my biological father kind of started taking a detour, like downhill. And then once my mom got pregnant with my little brother, and things didn't, he didn't really stay in contact that much. And we did speak to my Uncle Tim, which is his brother. We did see him a lot. And so my biological father, he he stopped coming around after my little brother Tyler was born when 2005. We had made plans to go down there for Christmas so we can meet my half siblings that my biological father had with his new wife. And it never happened. And after that, I had no contact with him up until I turned 18. And then he tried to reach out to me and blame my mom for not having contact with us, which didn't make any sense because my Uncle Tim struggled with drug addiction. So he was in and out of our lives. But my mom still set up meeting places at like the park or McDonald's or Burger King or somewhere so he can still have contact with his nieces and nephews. So that logic really didn't combine. My biological father didn't know my birthday, didn't know what instrument I played in school. He didn't really know much of anything. So I kind of just didn't really want to have to deal with that. I was also 17, 18 at that time. So I was a teenager. I really didn't know how to handle that. So I had my dad, which is Ken, and he was there for a lot of things. And I know I wasn't always the greatest child, but I I loved him. He wasn't perfect. Nobody really is perfect, but he was there for me. And he knew the things that I liked. He bought me my Kindle because he was tired of buying books every other day. Um, and he was my dad. So that's where my healing journey starts, is the loss of my biological father, who is still alive. So I had learned early on that grief comes in all shapes and sizes. It's not just losing someone to death, but it can be the loss of a friendship, or like me, your bio dad stop having anything to do with you, a painful breakup, or any kind of deep loss. Each one hits differently and they deserve the space to be felt. I didn't really recognize losing my biological father as grief until very recently. It was last year that I decided that I was going to forgive him. And I didn't forgive him for him. I did it for myself. So I can heal and I can move on, because I didn't want to continue to feel this sort of anger and hurt towards him, because he did have his own problems too. And I know I would never get the answers that I wanted, but I just didn't want what he was going through to stop me from having the things that I wanted. I didn't want those issues, those insecurities, to bleed into my relationships or my future kids. So, learning to forgive him was one of the hardest things that I had to do, because you're not grieving somebody who is no longer here. You're not grieving like a loss from a death or anything. You're grieving a real person that's still alive. So there's always that hope in the back of your mind that he's going to get his act together and he's going to come and he's going to be here, and that you'll still see him, so you don't really have to move on from that. But eventually I learned, and through my therapist, that I can forgive him for myself and not have to forgive him to help him. So by forgiving him, it made me feel lighter. It made me feel like I was not carrying so much pain, and that just because my biological father didn't want me doesn't mean that I didn't have a dad in my life. I had my dad. And like I said earlier, he wasn't perfect. Nobody is, but their imperfections are what makes them perfect. And he did his best in the circumstances that he had as well. So, learning to try to forgive somebody who's still alive, who you could still reach out to and have a conversation with, is kind of hard. So, once I messaged him and said that I was forgiving him for me so I can move on and I can heal, I found out that he was getting sober, and he's been sober for about a year. I'm not sure anything now because I don't really want to have contact with him. Um, it's been so long since I talked to him. And I don't know if that'll be healthy for me. Maybe eventually, I don't know. But I had a dad and I lost my dad, and I was still trying to grieve that. So I didn't really want to have to add on trying to repair a relationship that he really didn't put effort into wanting to have anyway. So I haven't had contact with him since. That was about a year or so ago. So I haven't really had contact with him. And that was my first ever journey into understanding what loss was. I didn't know it at the time, and I was struggling with it at the time because I never understood why my dad couldn't love me. I mean, I know I had my dad, and he did love me, but I didn't understand why couldn't my biological father love me. Was there something wrong with me? Was I the reason that they split up? These were all questions that I had in the back of my mind. And I know now that that wasn't a realistic burden for me to carry because it wasn't me. It wasn't who I am or my personality or anything that I did wrong. And I know I carried that into growing up and trying to make sure that my dad didn't do the same thing. And I think once I realized that and I got through that, me and my dad also did have a better relationship as well. So that was one grief that took me a very, very long time to work through. And I worked through that. And I did, like I said, forgive my biological father, but I really don't have any contact with him. And I don't plan to for a really long time. And so, and then another grief that I learned when I was in high school was that friendships. You can grieve friendships because the loss of a friend is different than like grieving your dad who left you or grieving a loved one that you lost. So I had a friend. We were friends since we were 12. She got with a guy that she was in love with, and then things just kind of took a turn, and she just kind of stopped talking to me and just kind of um not wanted me in her life. And I was about 15 or 16, and then I had a medical incident that brought her back into my life, and the same thing happened again. She kind of just stopped talking to me, just didn't want anything to do with me. And so that happened about two other different times. And this is where I also learned that when somebody shows you their true colors, that you don't have to go back to them. Um, but it was a hard lesson to learn. So the second time I forgave her, I found out that she was saying not so nice things to me. And how I found out was my friend who was dating her boyfriend's brother. So my ex best friend was dating a guy. The friend that I had who told me all this was dating my ex best friend's brother. So she was there for the whole conversation and she told me about it. And so I kind of stopped talking to her and I'm like, I can't do this. The third time was when I was in college. So I went to Amara College for a semester. It didn't work out. It was more of like I majored in partying, so I did a lot of things that college students did. And the same thing happened again. I was supposed to go to a Halloween party, and then I was told no because my ex-friend and someone else was going to be there, and it was not going to be good, and they didn't want drama. So I had to stay back in the dorm after I spent money on a Halloween costume and everything. So that was another thing that I learned, that like you can grieve friendships. They come in and out of your life. The hardest grief that I think that I had to go through is losing my grandpa and my dad. The two people who were there for me, who supported me, who loved me, who encouraged me, who talked me through everything. The people who made me who I am today. The people who were okay with my big personality, my bluntness, my dad teaching me not to be afraid to get my hands dirty, and just teaching me that, yeah, it's okay to read. You can read. The man who helped me raise my siblings, because that was another thing. I took care of my siblings um, since I turned 12, and so I took care of them. And so losing my grandpa and then turning around and losing my dad so soon after I lost my grandpa, which, if you look at it in a time frame, I lost my grandpa in 2018, and then I lost my dad in 2021. It seems like it's a long time, but in the span of grief, it feels very short, because you're still grieving that one person you lost, and then it's boom, you lost another person. So you have to grieve that on top of grieving the other loved one that you lost. And it was so significant of a loss, too, that it was a struggle. So grief isn't something that you can explain until you receive it, until you experience it, not receive it. People say it gets easier, but they don't know how you felt about that person or the kind of relationship you had. Only you know how you feel. Only you know how to grieve, because grieving is not the same for everyone. So, what works for me may not necessarily work for you. But if you can find what works for you, that's amazing. You have your friends, your family, have the people that you love, have a box of member stuff to help you remember. Play that song that you like. Play that song that reminds you of your grandparents. I found a song called Not to Remember You by Cooper Allen, and I listened to it once, and it made me cry. And I haven't listened to it since. I found it 3 years ago. Just recently, I think it was Tuesday, I went for a walk and I played that song, and it made me cry. I don't know why I listened to it, but I know I needed to feel it, if that makes sense. So I played on that song and I cried. I listened to Elvis, because that was one thing that my grandpa liked. Well, mainly my grandma, but we listened to it. My grandpa liked The Door, The Who, so we listened to those. And then my dad was very big into like metal. Like he likes Queen. Like if you can see, I'm wearing a Queen shirt. Um, Korn, Metallica, Disturbed, all of those. So I listened to those with him in the car too. My grandpa would play a song called A Playground in My Mind. And the story behind that is, when he heard the song, he played it for my grandma and said, "This is our song." Because my grandma's name is Cindy and my grandpa's name is Mike. Well, Michael and Lucinda, but everybody calls her Cindy. So he said, "This is our song." And it's called Playground in My Mind. I'm drawing a blank on who sings it, but I listened to that too to just like remember my grandpa and how sweet he was and just how amazing he was. So you gotta find what helps you heal. And if you're somebody looking to try to help somebody going through grief, helping someone through grief is not helping someone through grief is not a place no one wishes to be in because it's hard. You don't always know what to say or how to help, but just holding them, telling them, I got you, making sure they feel safe, loved in that moment so they can express themselves. That's always the way to go, whether they're grieving a wife they lost, a dad, a brother, a sibling, an aunt, uncle, whoever. Each type of loss will hit them differently, and everyone grieves differently. So there is no right way to help them, but just being there for them is often enough. And like with my mom, when my dad was in the hospital, I would always take a bottle of Sprite into her. So my mom had about 10 bottles of Sprite by the end of the week. I would take a bottle of Sprite in there, ask if she was okay, see if she needed anything, and just tell her goodnight and let her go to sleep. And then once my dad passed away, I sat with my mom and I helped her figure out the things that she needed to do. I helped her with my little brother because he was still a kid at the time. He was 16. So he wasn't really that little, but he will always be my little brother because I'm the oldest. So those things like that, kind of like stepping in where you need to go, helping them do things. So the day after my dad passed away, my mom had placed a Walmart order because she needed things. So me and my ex went and picked up the stuff that she needed. He wasn't my ex at the time, but he currently is now. So we went to pick up things. We even stopped at Barnes and Noble to get some things to kind of like help my mom and my little brother. And my little brother liked Pokemon cards. So he went to get Pokemon cards because he knows all about Pokemon cards and stuff. I don't. So I went to find my mom things. So I got her colored pencils and a coloring book. And I had come across this rack. Barnes& Noble has these racks of um bookmarks. And I was trying to figure out, I'm like, was numb, if that made sense. At the time, at that moment, I was just going on autopilot. I knew the things that I needed to get done, and I just needed to do them because I couldn't wrap my mind around my dad's not here anymore. What am I gonna do? Like, who do I talk to? I found a bookmark, and it was a Harry Potter bookmark. It was a quote from Luna Lovegood. It said, "The things we lose always has a way of always has a way of coming back to us in the end, if it's not, even if it's not in the way that we expected." And I just felt peace just kind of wash over me and like understand, like, okay, my dad may not be here with me physically, but he's still here in the way that I carry myself and the decisions that I make, and my little brother, and the choices that I make, and the books that I read, the movies that I watch, and things like that. And same with my grandpa. I actually have a tattoo, if you can see that right here, of my grandpa, for my grandpa. I'm still trying to figure out which one I want to get for my dad. It took me a while to figure out my grandpa's, but I will eventually get one for my dad. I'm just trying to figure out the right one. So you just got to find the things that will help you through the loss and the grief. And if you're trying to help someone through it, there's not much you can do but taking the load off, the stress, sitting with them, telling them that it's okay. I got you. cry in this moment if you have to. Take a minute because you will always feel that loss deep inside you, no matter what you do or where you go. Even if it's a dad, a brother, a wife, an uncle, a sibling, they're always going to miss those big milestones and it's going to hurt. Weddings, graduations, kids, grandkids, marriage, um, first job, first house, birthdays, things like that. So you're always going to feel it in the moment. And over time, it will get, I don't want to say it will get less painful because you will still feel it and it'll still be painful, but it will be easier to take a breath in that moment. It'll be easier to enjoy that moment a little longer than you normally would. Um, and eventually you'll get to the point that you'll be able to sit there and enjoy the whole moment or the whole party and still miss them. And that's part of grieving. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm still grieving the loss of my grandpa and my dad all at the same time. While now, on top of it, grieving an 8-year relationship. And I think the hardest thing about grieving an 8-year relationship is the fact that I'm going to be losing my best friend. He was here for my grandpa passing away, my dad passing away, my nephew being put into the NICU. So it was hard. It was hard, especially when he said we were over. And now I'm going through the motions on that. And that will be another episode because that's 8 years of my life. And it was just a lot. And I've learned things and I've grown. And I think it deserves its own space to heal and be told. So, episode 3 will be coming out next Friday, and it will be a little bit about my 8-year relationship and how I'm going through with that. So, I thank you all for staying with me this long. I hope that this all helped you. I hope that you guys are doing okay. You're finding the strength to make it through the day, even if it's just an hour at a time or a minute. You're still getting up, getting the things that you need, getting a drink, even if it's just brushing your hair. Because I know through grief, basic needs like eating, even just getting up out of bed is a struggle. So, as long as you're doing those small little things, you should be proud. Getting up out of bed after losing someone is hard. And if you did it, congratulations. If you brushed your hair, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And I'm not just saying that, I genuinely mean it because I know I was in those moments where it was hard. I was in those moments where it was hard to feel and I was numb. I was in the moment where I left the hospital and I went back home and then I got a call 10 minutes later that my grandpa died. And I rushed back to the hospital and I saw him there. Just, he was just there. Like, he was gone. And so we said our goodbyes to him the night before. And one of the hardest things I think I ever did, I ever said to somebody was when I told my grandpa and my dad that it was okay for them to let go, because I understood that by them holding on, it was hard for them. It was hurting them. And they would be so much, I don't want to say happier, but less in pain. They wouldn't be in pain anymore if they just let go. So I told them, I said, it's okay that you let go. I understand. I'll be here. I'll make sure everything's okay. I will always love you. And I will always appreciate the things that you have done for me, the moments that we had, the time we got to spend together. But if it hurts too much, you can let go. And that was the hardest conversation I ever had with anybody. That even included my breakup, which you guys will hear all about in the conversations I had. I never wish for somebody to have that conversation with anybody. And if you do have to have that conversation, I'm so sorry. And that makes you one of the most selfless people I've ever met, because we all want them to stay, hang on, hold out hope. But eventually there comes a time when you know that that hope is just not realistic anymore. So the fact that you can put yourself out there and you can say, it's okay to let go, you are stronger than you think you are. And I am so proud of you, because I know I was in that moment. And people who have never been in that moment or ever had to say that or deal with that, that's okay. I'm glad you don't, because that's not something that I wish on my worst enemy at all. It's not something that you should have to deal with. So I'm proud of all of you and the work you've done and how far you've come. You should be proud of yourself too, no matter what anybody says. So if these videos help you, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I try to read all of them and comment back. And I hope to see you on the next video. Be safe. You're gonna do great. You're gonna make it through this. And be kind to yourself. Have a good night.